now from Hollywood, California, the horror capital of the world, the Boulet brothers, creatures of the night.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night for 2023. It's a whole new year.
Yes, it is. I love the New Year season, not because I'm into resolutions and stuff, because let's face it, everyone makes resolutions and maybe not everybody keeps to those resolutions. But I look at this time of year, to quote myself, not just about rejuvenation, but about regeneration.
I think these markers are important, and I think that it's a good time to kind of assess your year, right? I believe in intention and manifesting your goals and your dreams, and I think it's important when you have times like this to take a minute, look at how your last year went, things maybe you could have improved on or done differently, or did you really hit the target of the goals you set? And then look at your new year coming and make adjustments so that you can actually hit your goals, because the mind is a powerful tool. I think people can achieve their dreams if they focus on what it is they're after. Life can clutter that up sometimes, you know?
Yeah, I think that almost sounds cliche, but I can't underline it and kind of reinforce that enough. And you and I do that in our life regularly. I'd love to impart that onto listeners. If you focus on what you want instead of just kind of blobbing through your life, you can actually get exactly what you want. It may not look how you intended it to look, but you can bring things to yourself. You can manifest those things in your life. And we do that on the regular, and I like to impart that on everybody else.
Me too. I would suggest, as someone that does practice this, write it down. Write it down in a simple sentence. Put it on your mirror at home, put it on your phone. If you're looking at your phone all the time, make it the cover thing of your phone, you know, and then it just constantly reminds you, am I on track? Am I doing things that lead me towards this goal? And if you're not, maybe you should re-examine those things.
Exactly. Let's take this opportunity to congratulate our very first Titan from Dragula. We want to send a congratulations to Victoria, Dragula's first Titan risen from the underworld. We also want to take the time to congratulate all of the finalists, the whole cast, and the crew.
Yes. We haven't had time to do that yet. You know, we kind of shop closed down. So here we are. So congratulations again to Victoria Elizabeth Black, the first Titan of the Boulet Brothers Dragula.
Absolutely deserved. I mean, I could picture any of the finalists really snatching the crown and the title of Titan, but it just fits kind of perfectly. And I think poetically for Victoria to be the first Titan.
I do too. And honestly, I think that Hoso and Coco showed how incredible they are as well. And that I think in the same light as Victoria, I don't think their paths are done at all. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's the beginning for them in the same way that maybe it was for Victoria on season 2.
Yeah, you really do never know where the road is going to take you. It's winding, it's twisting, and sometimes it feels treacherous. But if you think back and look at Victoria's career, then the whole inception of Resurrection and what she brought to that competition, and then finally everything that she brought to Titans, I mean, it's a really involved, winding 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 huge steps forward, and now she has a crown on her head. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate the crew. Like I said, so much work goes into a show like this, and I think a lot of it shows up on screen. We want to thank the crew. We want to thank the cast. We want to thank all of the execs at Shudder, at AMC for kind of standing behind our strange queer show and supporting it and making it the success that it is.
So let's talk a little bit about the ending, because as we know, the ending was a little divisive for some of the fans.
Yes.
And I kind of want to speak about it a little bit.
Yeah. I think one thing we need to recognize first and kind of be grateful for is the fans of the show and their passion, how much passion they have for Dragula and everything that it is and everything that it stands for, not only for us, the creators, but also for them, the people that consume and have grown to love the show. Because I look at it as it's something we, and I use the word we kind of lightly. It's you and I, it's the Boulet brothers, but it's also Ian and everyone around our concentric circles that have been there since the very beginning. It's our show. We pour everything of ourselves into it. But I think this year, I've really realized that Dragula is also the fans' show. They have some ownership of it. They have grown to expect things from it and want things from it. I need to acknowledge that, because one of the things that happened this season was this reaction to the finale.
Right.
And I just want to talk about the format for a minute. Just like Resurrection, we take risks. Resurrection had like a completely different format. We took risks all across the board, and it was largely well received. People loved them.
People loved Resurrection. I didn't hear one
detractor.
complaint. And the way we announced the winner and everything, it tied into the creative of the VHS tapes, which you saw at the intro of Resurrection. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So we were thinking, like, this is an all-star, loosely using this term, all-star season. It's our Titan season. So let's take risks. Let's change the format. Let's have this ghostly gallery, and we're in the underworld, and there are so many things that appear in a regular season of Dragula that we do not see on Titans.
From moment one.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw even there was no Boulet cinematic intros. We kind of came out hosting it in a different way. And then, the way that we eliminated competitors, we didn't do exterminations. We didn't do the kill scenes. Like, this was a new show. This was a different format, just like Resurrection was. But I didn't realize how attached the fans were to the format of the show. I mean, to be honest, no one ever really said anything. So I never even knew if they liked the regular finales of the show.
I don't think we ever heard like a resounding like outcry from the fans to say, we love our bloody crowning.
Yeah.
We love our 3-floor shows. And I'm glad to know that they do, because we definitely know it now, because there was this huge outcry after not seeing those things on Titans. It was, where's our 3-floor shows? Where's our filth, horror, glamour? Where's the blood? And I'm like, okay, well, fans absolutely love those tropes. So message received. We can bank on seeing those things when we have the next season, when season 5 of Dragula, which of course we always would. But for Titans, we're in the realm of shades. This is the underworld, and there's this tie through of
the ghostly gallery,
and like going through that spirits and pictures of the dead at the end. And you know what? We took risks, and we stand by our creative decisions, because Titans was not a regular season of Dragula. And we recognize that some of the fans weren't happy with the way that the season ended, and message received. We would never want to disappoint our fans on purpose.
And I can't understand why fans wanted to see the physical manifestation of a crowning. Like, I can see that. The plan is to crown Victoria at the first stop of the tour in Orlando, which is her hometown. Like, to us, it made sense creatively because the prize of the show is $100,000, but also to headline the tour. The opening night of the tour is in Orlando, Victoria's hometown, where she will be crowned.
I think it's creatively satisfying. It's also poetically satisfying. The Orlando date is like selling out. If you're listening to this now, get your tickets if you want to go to the show, because they're almost gone. And I think that's going to be a resounding kind of glorious moment for the show and for Victoria to be crowned in her own city.
Well, I also want to say, just for those wondering, Victoria and the rest of the finalists, no one feels upset by the way the finale ended. Victoria is thrilled. She's getting $100,000 cash. She is the Titan of Dragula. She's going to headline a world tour. Like, she is just fine, and she is happy, believe me.
I can promise you that. Ultimately, I want to encourage people to remember, even if some fans were not happy with the way that the show ended, that this is a huge win for the crew and the cast. Tons of hard work went into this queer, strange show, and Victoria and everyone involved should be celebrated and congratulated.
Ultimately, there's nothing more to say other than we tried something different. Some people didn't like it. We hear and appreciate the feedback, and we will consider it going forward. On to bigger and better things, right?
Speaking of, we have an 18-city North American and Australian tour that has been announced. And tickets are on sale now. If you want to get them, you can find tickets at dragulalive.com. And we are announcing more places in the world by the end of the summer and the beginning of the fall.
And other Dragula stars that are going to be joining us along the way, too. I don't think we've teased that out yet.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to check those out, the dates on the North America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand have been announced. You can check those out at dragulalive.com. And in other exciting news, casting is now open for the next chapter of Dragula.
The next chapter begins. So let's talk a little bit about casting, right? Because the deadline is January 31st. So people still have a lot of time to get their auditions in. I am overwhelmed at the response.
Yeah.
So far from what I'm hearing, some of the names, I'm very excited. I already think it's going to be I just know it's going to be an exciting season of Dragula. But I want to kind of encourage people out there to audition and to encourage other people to audition, because I think there's some people out there that think they don't belong. And those are the people that I want, right? Those are the people that we want. We want outcasts and misfits. I want crazy creatures and just non-traditional forms of drag. I would love to see more of that.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think that we want to encourage everyone that we are casting the net far and wide. We created this platform to celebrate the uncelebrated. So if you are a legendary hag or a TikTok stunt queen.
Legendary hag.
Yes, I want the legendary hags of the world to apply.
There are some monster drag artists that sort of predate, right? I'm saying like the
prehistoric monsters.
Yes, if there's like the Olympian gods, right? There was the Titans before the gods, and then what were the ones before the Titans? There were like those deities, you know?
Yeah, like the primal forces of chaos.
like let's bring them back out, right? Like I want people that just think maybe drag forgot them to apply, or no, you know what I mean? Like there's people who I think were like sort of reputable drag artists that were crazy and didn't fit any kind of mold, and then the whole explosion of drag came and televised drag and cut creases and all this, and those people sort of were left in. I think they felt like time forgot them, and but I did not forget them.
A few names do come to mind.
Yeah, and I encourage them to apply, like be the representation. I've heard some kind of legendary drag artists sort of say, well, everything's TV now and it's this or that. I'm like, come on the show and change that perception, because you can. I think of people like Disasterina. Disasterina is such a non-traditional drag artist and so incredible, such a different voice. I love that. I want to see more of that. There's also even super new drag artists that are just like coming up on TikTok, right? I'm like, I want them to apply. I want them to come and show what they have. Like, I think everybody has a place at the table. I just want this to be a celebration of the uncelebrated. So if you're a freak, if you're an outcast, or even if maybe you're kind of like a killer beauty queen that's hiding who you really are, this might be an opportunity for you to step up and redefine what people think of your drag.
Did you hear that, sweetie? If you wear your ugly on the inside, we want you to.
Absolutely.
Well, this year is going to be super exciting, and we have tons to look forward to, not just the world tour or the next season of Dragula, but let's talk about some horror that's coming up that we're excited about in 2023.
Well, there's one thing I'm excited about, and I hope I'm not betraying my trust here, but you know that they're doing this Friday the 13th prequel series.
Yes.
And we got to basically have a conversation with some of the creators of that series. We know the whole thing. We know the whole story. We know everything about it. And I just want to tell fans, get ready, because you are going to love it. It is so exciting. I can't tell you anything about it, obviously, but it is so good.
Like when you watch especially stuff that is like redoing classic IP, you're like, oh my God, please don't ruin this for us. We love this.
This is not getting ruined.
We worship at this altar forever. Like, don't touch it. But you sometimes wish, you're like, God, I wish someone that just knew it and got it and adored it could take it over and recreate it. That's what's happening.
That has happened.
Yeah, that has happened. So it's a lot to look forward to. Ian's not with us yet, but something that he might be looking forward to is Cocaine Bear.
Oh my God. There's a movie called Cocaine Bear.
Oh, there really is.
I have been to the Eagle. I have seen Cocaine Bear in person, and it is a horror.
We have met some of Ian's previous boyfriends. We know Cocaine Bear.
And then there's the new Scream movie, right, which is taking place in New York.
I know.
I think is interesting. Did you see the trailer for it?
It's giving Jason Takes Manhattan.
No, it's not.
It kind of is.
No, it's not. That was a terrible movie.
It's so terrible that you still kind of love it, though.
No, I don't. But did you see the little trailer? They did a little teaser. It's basically a clip of people in the subway. And like we used to live in New York. We're very familiar with what it is, travel around on the subway. And you know how it can feel. There's a lot of people around you, but it's still kind of scary. It could be scary if you kind of think well, that's what this little teaser kind of plays on. And I thought that was really interesting, because you really have to be a New Yorker to understand that fear. And when the train goes over and the lights go out for a couple of seconds?
Oh, yeah.
It was like that. And then you could see the ghost face mask. I don't know. I think it's going to be really good.
I'm excited about it. Look, I love the world of Scream, 5 Cream, whatever you want to call it. Like, we've been getting new updates from the franchise, and I'm excited for 6.
So there's also Renfield, which we saw, which we're now seeing the trailer for.
Yes.
Which I'm glad we saw the trailer, because when I was seeing the stills like a couple of months ago, I was like, what is happening?
I didn't know what to.
It's really
I didn't know.
goofy, and I was
did
like,
not know what
what?
to make of it either. But now we see a super fun, stylistic, scary, giallo-inspired film, and I'm really excited about it. Plus, anything vampire, I'm all over it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. But, I'm realizing we are talking for like way too long and we need to take a quick break. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to be joined by our co-host and we're going to dig into this episode's creature feature movie review.
On with the show.
Hello, uglies. It's that special time of year again, so visit BouletBrothersDracula.com for brand new merch from the wicked world of the Boulet Brothers. T-shirts, keychains, stickers, vinyl copies of the Boulet Brothers debut EP, Time to Die, and a brand new shipment of exclusive merch has just become available at BouletBrothersDracula.com. So if you consider yourself a member of the Dracula Coven and truly practice the dark arts, spend all of your nether coins at BouletBrothersDracula.com. Do it now or die.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time we welcome our co-host and co-producer to the podcast, Ian DeVogler. Ian, welcome to the show.
Oh, I have been summoned from my little warm, child-sized coffin, just warding off the winter spirits, and here I am with the two best winter spirits.
Oh, speaking of going back into your coffin, I don't know. This is giving me like, for some reason recently, we have been obsessed with the Real Housewives of New York. Which we have watched it before, but not the older seasons, which I know you're a fan of.
Oh, yeah.
The scene keeps going into...
Oh, my God.
It's Luann is attacking. Oh, why am I spacing her name? She says like your Herman Munster shoes and
Alex.
all that.
Alex
yes.
comes in, and Luann's like, go back into the cabinet that you came from. I was like, what is she talking about? But I love it.
It's amazing. The line is actually, how dare you attack me? Go back to the cabinet that you came out of.
Oh my God. The early seasons of New York are crazy. Like everyone is sort of raw and real and unhinged.
Oh my God, it's outrageous.
How I got sucked into it was Bethany Frankel has a new podcast out, which has had all this like drama, whatever. But wanted to listen to it to see what the drama was about. And I did. And I was like, what is she talking about? I don't remember those scenes. So I was like, let's go back and watch. And I got hooked. And I'm realizing now that season 3 of The Real Housewives of New York is like probably one of the most iconic seasons of Housewives in any franchise.
It is the treasure trove that just keeps on giving and giving and giving. Like every episode after episode. First of all, I'm like, how many episodes are on this season? It seemed never ending.
It's crazy.
And every episode you get introduced to another concept like Scary Island, Money Can't Buy You Class, Ramona Says Turtle Time.
All of that is in the same season.
Your scary kabuki makeup. She looked like a vampire. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. I mean, it's like there's like an endless reference list.
Iconic. I mean, I feel like that is really when the franchise started to, well, really the entire Housewives franchise as a whole started to really get its footing. And they were like, we have this amazing cast. We have some new people. We have some like classic characters there. I mean, there are people on the 3rd season of Housewives of New York who are still on the show.
And Bethany will take credit for all of them and all of it. And
as
she'll let
she
you know
should.
every
Her
chance she
podcast,
gets.
I can't believe it. I'm like, okay, note of what not to say on your podcast. I love her, but wow. I'm like, she's like, I invented everything. I invented the Housewives. I invented
I invented margaritas. I invented Andy
I invented
Cohen.
diet food.
Yeah.
I was the first one to do anything. And I'm
I
like,
invented New York.
I mean, some of it she did, but I'm like,
I mean, literally, Housewives of New York season 3 is basically 6 Cream.
yeah.
Cream 6? 6 Cream?
So I think we cannot talk about the Real Housewives of New York without you telling listeners about your fight with Kelly Ben-Simone.
Oh my God. Okay. So here we go. So, wow. So a few years ago when I was watching Housewives for the first time, I was like, let me start with New York. It's iconic. Let me see what it's all about. And so we get to the 3rd season and, I was more unhinged on the internet and I didn't even say anything crazy. I just tweeted. I was like, oh my God, Kelly Ben-Simone is so crazy on this 3rd season of Housewives. And Kelly Ben-Simone, who has like a life and a career outside of the show, and it's been like 10 years she's been on, she DMs me and she's like, you don't know anything about what actually happened on that season. Like, how dare you? I'm like, Mama, get off the internet. Like, and we battled in my DMs.
Which should be read as, she wants you to zip it.
I should have just said, go to sleep, go to sleep. Go to
Literally.
sleep.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
speaking of, she's like, you have no idea what happened on that season. Yeah, nobody does, because
Yeah.
every time they try to talk about it, there's no clear answer. Like the reunion, or even Bethany did this podcast the other day. Nobody will just say, like, I still don't understand what happened.
There is a strange air of mystery around that season. Like, I don't know if they were trying to protect someone or if there's just not the footage to back it up or what the reality is. But I think it's also part of the magic of that season is there are so many giant question marks over everything. And it just lends to like the end of the season has this crazy frenetic energy. Like people are freaking out left and right. They're drinking. It's wild. We're crying. I live.
You know what was great about that is when that was all coming out, they weren't all on Twitter and social media
Very
sort of
different
like,
time.
vetting each episode and every little nuance as it happened. So I think it left viewers with the question of like what happened, and they never even the people that were on the show didn't ever come back around later and say, well, on this episode this is actually what happened. Like, you just still never know, and I guess it makes it kind of magic.
Well, it's kind of like a golden era for that type of reality TV. I think because there wasn't this like mega scrutiny on the cast. Like, you just didn't have that type of access. So
You think it's bad for the cast to just tweet everything that they think as the episodes are coming out?
It's
And just
really-
attack them at every turn, no matter what they say. If they go left, you complain. If they go right, you complain more.
It's really weird. It's almost as if unfettered access to people is a bad thing. And maybe you should just like block out the people who are saying all this crazy shit and focus on your own success. Weird.
Guru.
Yeah.
The guru.
Oh, I invented Skinny Girl Guru.
Oh, okay. So enough about that.
Yeah,
Let's
let's
talk
get-
about Ian's news.
Fake personality.
Well, dear listeners, as always, it is my pleasure to gaze into the scrying glass, this time a glass bauble atop the holiday tree, to deliver you the finest in frightening festive factoids. Keeping in theme with tonight's episode, I'm looking back at the year with blood-smeared rose-colored glasses as the year horror reigned supreme. Last year around this time, your ghost hostesses and I cast our predictions that the landscape of horror would be changing to be gorier, funnier, bigger, and badder. This year, we saw so many incredible horror movies from X and Pearl, Barbarian, Bodies, 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 Terrifier 2, Five Cream, a personal favorite, The Sadness, just to name a few. With the recent announcements of the newest entry in the Scream franchise, Sam Raimi's return to horror in the form of a dinosaur monster hunter action thriller, Ari Aster's latest project being billed as a horror comedy, and Megan cartwheeling into theaters in the opening of 2023, it seems as though we're about to have another horrifying year. So I wanted to bring it to the ghouls here. What do we think 2023 has in store for us for horror?
I think that we haven't seen the full horror comedy yet. Like, we predicted that, but that's when they were kind of working on it, right? So it hasn't all come out yet. I think we're still going to see a lot of that sort of 80s horror comedy coming out. Probably because we're going to make some. So
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to deep dive into strange little pockets. Like, it might be a pottery. Like, I'm thinking
A
like
potpourri.
a potpourri of strange
a
little
potpourri
pockets.
of strange little pockets of horror.
A paranormal potpourri.
A paranormal potpourri of strange pockets of horror.
So, like, what do you mean?
Okay, like to think that Sam Raimi is back with this dinosaur monster hunter. Like, I hadn't heard about that one yet,
yeah.
and I love that idea. And then Ari Aster's like comedy horror.
What
we,
is
like,
that?
we don't
Is that-
see
So,
that.
Yeah, so to start, Sam Raimi is releasing a new movie called 65, and it stars Adam Driver as a character who time travels back to the land of the dinosaurs and has like a space-age machine gun, and basically it's like Jurassic Park unhinged with guns.
See, I kind of love
Isn't that Star
On-
Wars? Didn't that already happen?
Isn't that Cocaine Bear? Kind
That's
of?
all of these in one. And then the new Ari Aster movie, I think, was recently renamed to Beau is Afraid, and it stars Joaquin Phoenix, based off of a short he did in 2011. And it's a horror comedy from the person who made Hereditary, the
Yeah.
funniest movie in existence.
See, we were right to predict that it's going to be comedy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a dinosaur future movie.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting, actually.
Well, it's a future past movie. Dinosaurs being
Yeah, Adam Driver is going to take his giant space gun and those mommy milkers
the-
and go back in time to battle dinosaurs.
not only her mommy milkers, but also those pepperoni nipples.
That's all I can think of when I hear that actor's name. Like pepperoni
Wow.
nipples on the Star Trek island.
like John Hamm, just cursed.
feeding those little penguin creatures.
And honestly, I would.
Wait, he wasn't the one what do you mean feeding the? You're not getting it all mixed up now.
There,
it was
there-
Luke Skywalker.
There was a
that was feeding
graphic. There was like a little comic that came out after that, whatever that installment was, and it was Adam Driver like trapped on that island as what's his character?
Kylo Ren.
Yeah, as Kylo Ren, but like shirtless, and those weird little like penguin creatures were like sucking on his nipples.
Me in a little penguin. He's like, why is there this one 6-foot penguin here? And I'm like, don't worry about it, Adam. Kylo.
Wow.
I mean, jokes aside, I agree. I think that we are going to see more comedy in our horror. I think that, Drac, I think you're right. Like, we saw kind of the beginnings of this. I mean, even just some of those movies, like, I feel like we all, got our lives and our wigs together with Barbarian, i.e. the Victoria Elizabeth Black special. Terrifier 2, I should not have been laughing so hard at someone having their entire back flayed open, but I was. And with Megan and Cocaine Bear leading us in, I'm like, it's going to be a good year for horror and a good year for laughs.
Well, I agree. It's going to be a good year for horror. I think it's going to be a good year for laughs. And I think on that note, it's time we move on to this episode's Creature Feature movie review.
Oh.
Now, a few weeks back, we told listeners what was on our to-watch list, and one of the films that got away from us was director Parker Finn's Smile. As members of the Junior Mints Movie Club, we're dedicated to getting to every movie on our to-watch list, so this episode we chose to review Smile. The story of Dr. Rose Cotter, who, after witnessing a bizarre traumatic incident involving a patient, starts experiencing unexplainable, frightening occurrences. As an overwhelming terror begins taking over her life, Rose must confront her troubling past in order to survive and escape her horrifying new reality.
I am so glad that we are reviewing Smile because I thought it was
yes.
lost in the void because we did that.
Yes.
Remember we did that big Junior Mints, like,
Yes.
here's like 5 movies.
And we all got a big frown.
We got a big frown because we did not earn our badge that month. So I'm glad because I really wanted to see this when it came out. The previews for it looked really good.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that we watched it.
I think we all
Me
got our
too.
trauma badges officially.
Oh, mama, I am the trauma mama. over
Okay,
here.
before we
Mama,
begin.
mama.
Okay, so initial thoughts. What were you thinking when the credits were rolling?
Okay, so I feel like I had a deep shame about this. When the movie started, I had my snob hat on. I was like, ugh, big budget Paramount horror. I'm gonna hate it. And then I couldn't stop smiling. I was like, I love this movie. I was so pleasantly surprised by the scares, by the atmosphere. I was like, I don't feel like the snob in me wants to like this movie, but mama, I was actually really, really happy. I loved it.
My basic, like, 2-sentence reaction is I loved it. I thought it was great. I do think 75% of the movie was, or maybe 85% of the movie was fantastic, but the last 15%, I could definitely do without.
We'll get there. No, we'll
Interesting.
totally get there.
What
I
about you?
also love the movie. I loved it. I was exhausted. I literally exhausted by the movie because I think the runtime was maybe one of its flaws, but I felt like probably 30, 45 minutes in, I looked at Drac and I was like, this movie is designed to fuck with me. Like in every way, like the type of filming, all the claustrophobic shots, like the jump scares, like the way that it was, I was like, oh, this movie is wearing me out. It is wearing me out. But
Yes.
it was like a really fun ride.
I thought it was very scary. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there was definitely legitimate moments of terror, which, look, we've seen it all at
yeah.
this point. So we're a little numb to it, but I definitely got scared a few times. I thought the little jump scare tricks were effective, even though, you know, at this point they shouldn't work on us, but so that means they're doing a good job of it. But I also thought, too, when the main character first is in her house and she starts, you know, losing it, and she kind of looks over and the girl standing there in the shadow.
Oh, yeah.
That was terrifying.
And those are the type of scenes that would, like, I don't know if you guys ever do this, but since I was a child, like for me, there was always like this horror of there's this imaginary presence in the bathroom behind the shower curtain.
Oh, hell yeah.
To where sometimes the hairs would go up on the back of my neck. I'm at the mirror and I thought if I just pan my neck to the right and I look, there's going to be some like horrifying creature standing where the shower curtain should be. And I think Smile kind of did that to me over and over and over and over.
So what were
Yeah.
some of you all's favorite scares from the movie?
Well, I think that one of my favorite scares is what I would consider to be the first jump scare, which this is sort of a peek behind the curtain of how the podcast works. Like I do, you know, sort of I listen to the podcast and I make little edits here and there. So I'm looking at the waveform when I'm editing the podcast. And there's a scene where the main character is editing a waveform of the first kill of the movie. And she hears this sort of like, what is this? What's she hearing? And then it disappears. And then there's this big sonic jump scare. And Mama, I was gooped. I was like, this is my my nightmare. But yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like the jump scares are effective, and I guess I would call like the terror is effective too. Like it has in equal measure the sort of the existential dread and the fear of like, oh my God, what's hiding in the shadows over here? But then also the go see a Halloween movie with your friends scare factor.
Was there any moments that stood out as like the scariest for you?
I don't know about the scariest. I want to talk about the jump scares for a minute because I think the whole thing just added up to it was very atmospheric and like super successful. It was creepy. The combination of the way it was filmed with like the mental illness backdrop and the style, the soundscape was like incredible. I feel like the sound was almost like a character in itself, which was a scary character.
Yeah.
But jump scares equal cheap to me. Like a jump scare movie, I'm like, oh, it's cringy. It's very yawn. It's so tired. I look at it as lowbrow. But I think Smile successfully turned jump scares into like a classy addition to the movie because they were so unexpected. Like the timing was not what you thought it would be. Like there's a one shot like right toward the beginning when the onset of the terror is just beginning and she's standing at the refrigerator and we have the classic like refrigerator door shot and like I exhale. I'm like, do we need this shot? Do we ever need this angle? Like ever?
Yeah.
But the door shuts and the scare is not there and it doesn't come for like 20 more minutes, but the sound has got me on edge. I'm like, I want to scream, but like nothing's happening. And I mean, that on edge feeling lasted for like 2 full hours.
Okay, so since no one took the bait and said what their scariest moment.
Hold on. Oh my God. One of my favorite scares though, I'll tell you, because the main character goes in and out of like, is this a dream? Is this like a hallucination? Is when her therapist called.
Oh my God.
We're like 75% of the way into the movie and she's pouring out her feelings and how she's like on the edge of like this breakdown and the mania and the fear is like at an apex. And then you realize like Smile Monster is the therapist. And then the therapist really calls. And I was like, I mean like layers of rippling chills.
I thought when the alarm agent called and she was like, are you sure you didn't let someone in? And then she's like, turn around. Like, I thought that was super terrifying. And also another effective moment was when she's standing there with the butcher knife and the boyfriend comes flying around the corner.
That was horrifying.
That was really scary on both. I mean, if you were either one of those.
Yeah. Well, and I will also say the lead actor, Sosie Bacon, I think she is incredible. I was like, this movie would kind of flop if she wasn't so good. I mean, she really carries a lot of weight in the movie.
She really does.
She had to do that tour makeup. You know, she woke up about 75% of the way through the movie and she was like, ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not looking so good. And she just spackled it on. And I was like,
I've been there.
Exactly.
That concealer moment before her nephew's party.
I swear, I'm like, I've been on the tour bus sad, alone at the kitchen table before being like, I can't believe I got to do this again.
Okay, well, Drax's sad tour makeup, which we'll revisit off mic.
Don't you remember some nights, for some reason, I was on the tour bus by myself in the UK a couple of times. It was, anyway.
Because the dressing rooms were kind of small. So
yeah.
But that scene where they're at the nephew's birthday party, I just remember that being a turning point for me when you realize, I think right before the reveal of what's in the box, you realize you're like, oh, it's the dead
Did
cat.
you know it was mustache?
Yes.
I did too.
I didn't see it, but it was instantly giving Fatal Attraction.
God, yeah. Oh, totally.
She's serving Fatal Attraction. She's giving dead mustache.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Murder my pussy.
Slaughtered pussy realness.
Yes. When that like conservative therapist like got in her grill and like snarled, it was giving aliens.
Oh, yeah, totally. Well,
Definitely.
I feel like there were so many different subgenres of horror sort of blended together into a mostly really effective mix.
Yeah. So what were some of the flaws? Like what? Because it wasn't a perfect film, but I think we're all basically saying the same thing. It was it was a fun ride, surprisingly scary, very effective. But what were the imperfections?
The forced narrative. Did not like this forced narrative of trauma and that whole thing at the end. I thought it was really overplayed. Like, I don't think it was necessary. It was hinted at. That was enough. We could draw our own conclusion. But they just kept doubling down right at the end, and I thought it was a turnoff.
A lot of people were, like, disappointed with the ending.
I will agree that I like that term you use, the forced narrative is unnecessary. I almost feel like that's a thing that they did because it was such a big budget release because, sometimes, you have a message that comes out and it's like, hi, let's broadcast to everyone. People are like, wait, why was the monster like this? And it's like you have to beat people over the head with it. I could have done with that.
But they were like, hey, guys, it's trauma. Oh, wait. Hey, Did you know? Trauma.
Oh, by the way, trauma.
Yeah, I was like,
Trauma.
okay, we get it. Like, wow.
So that was kind of the messaging, right? It was kind of negative. Was it basically like, I want to ask you this. It was kind of negative messaging, very much like, if you have trauma, if you have deep-seated like childhood trauma, you're screwed. There's no escaping it. There's an inevitable self-destruction, like almost like
Unless
on
you
a
kill someone else, then you can escape it, right? Because the guy in prison, he escaped it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, but did she? I mean, Mama, she was messed the fuck up.
She was alive. And
Well-
she didn't have her face beat up with a hammer.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I love a bleak ending. Like,
Yeah.
Mama, when it ends and everyone's dead, I'm like, yay! Happy
did you like
holidays.
this?
I love the ending.
Okay.
I love the ending, but I do agree that it's unfortunate because I think that if it didn't have that heavy-handed messaging, it wouldn't be such a, I'm going to say problematic, but a problematic thing to wrestle with, because without the sort of heavy-handed, it's about trauma. You can't escape it. I'm happy to just look at this and be like, damn, that sucks, Mama. But because it is sort of like trying to fix this trauma and it's all about therapy and these things, it does leave a sort of sour taste in your mouth of like, oh, so there is no escape from anything.
And
Yikes.
the message was a little confusing because obviously it became very much about trauma, and the mom goes into her, so she's taking on the mother's. I mean, it's very obvious. Taking on the mother's
Extremely
problems,
literal.
and she can't escape. But then they're like, but don't forget, this has happened to other people, and it started in Brazil. Or you're like, so which is it? You're like, is it this weird mystery curse, or is it this trauma? And I thought that was a little
Right.
confusing. And
Is it a metaphor? Is it like supernatural, or is it like psychological?
I did not like the Victoria Black mom monster that came out at the end.
Oh, I love Mom Monster.
I felt like, I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Does that not
No,
look
it
like?
was giving 10-foot tall Dracula super monster
100%.
VEB realness.
I'm like, that is Vander or Victoria or someone with the wig back on the. I mean, it was
yeah.
like literally them.
I mean, let's go a step further. It's Vander, it's Victoria, it's the Granny Hag from Hell, it's
Yeah.
Barbarian. I mean,
And I'm not knocking our competitors. What they do is great. They look
Right.
fantastic. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying they
It was
would do that on
draggy.
stage on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
You know?
I did think, again, it's a little heavy-handed, and I love this movie, but, part of loving a movie, I think, is being critical of it sometimes, but it's like, okay, cool, we have this trauma mama monster, and she
Trauma mama.
Trauma mama.
literally.
Yeah, so we have our trauma mama monster, and she's just like 10-foot tall, scary mommy. And I'm like, okay, cool, great. But then when she rips her face open and reveals sort of the true, like, multi-mouthed shark tooth, I was like, okay, that was the wig reveal I wanted.
Yeah.
I felt like that was like, well, this doesn't make any sense, but we just happen to have this prosthetic over at
for
the shop.
sure.
Slap it on her. She's scary. Here's 10 rows of teeth. Get into it.
But then she dived
No.
right into the mouth. I was like,
Okay,
yes.
that-
Wait, no,
that's-
the
that
mouth
goes-
dove into her.
Yeah. Trauma Mama monster dives into her. Like,
Yeah.
it's like letting the trauma in.
Yeah, so why was Trauma Mama like, here, I have a giant mouth, but I'm not going to eat you. You're going to eat me. I'm like, what?
Well, let's not try to
She should've
rationalize
shrank
like
down to a little weird worm. And
you're
went in
out here
there.
trying to rationalize Trauma Mama monster.
I'm sorry,
We
out
don't
of-
need to do that.
Out of context, I'm opening my mouth. I'm getting in your mouth, showing you mine. You're showing. I'm like, woo,
This leads to
smile.
my flaw. I think one of the flaws was there were a couple of
Smile.
there were a couple of unnecessary like CGI moments that
Oh,
I think
yeah,
I
well,
could have done
sure,
without.
sure.
There was the death that you saw on like the surveillance camera where the guy kind of like stabbed himself
Oh,
at
yeah.
the gas station, and it was small, but I'm like,
Which
that
is-
was dumb.
What did
I
I
didn't,
say
I
when I
didn't
saw
need
that?
I'm like, it was so cheap,
It's
and
also
then,
so weird. I'm like, it's from so far away that it's like, why don't you just do it practical and do
like
it
make
up?
it look better.
It was giving college humor clip to me.
It was giving, God, what is that? Oh, it was giving rotten.com for my gross internet children out there.
Do you know what I mean? Though it was like kind of like a weird internet clip where you're trying to trick someone or something like that's what
Oh,
it felt. I was
yeah.
like,
Oh
this-
yeah.
that was not scary.
The other CGI moment, which was kind of like at the apex, which is why I'm gonna poo-poo on the ending a little bit, which is when Trauma Mama Monster like opened her mouth so like too wide.
Uh-huh.
And for me, it was giving the taking of Deborah Logan, but
But
in
back.
reverse,
Iconic.
like backward and done badly.
Yes, I
like,
agree.
We didn't need that shot. I think it diminished the horror of the moment. Like when we like peeled away our face and we saw like 10 smiling mouths and Saucy Bacon's performance of just absolute
Who's
stunned.
Saucy Bacon?
Saucy Bacon, right?
I think so, but I just love the way they use it. We would get saucy bacon. I'm like,
Who
Mama,
the
I
hell's
want a side of
Saucy
saucy
Bacon?"
bacon.
Jack, follow along. That's the actress. That's her
our-
name.
that's our lead.
Saucy, Saucy.
I think
Not
it's so
saucy.
saucy bacon, the trauma mama monster.
I was like, what? Saucy Bacon? What are we talking about? We going to lunch after
we're
this?
going-
Saucy bacon mustache trauma mama monster with
We're
a side
going off the
of
rails. But that CGI kind of took me, I think it diminished her performance because her absolute stunned terror and just like being overwhelmed by the monster of her trauma right in front of her. Like the look in her eyes
She's
was
great.
absolutely incredible. Like it was just, you felt it as a viewer. And I thought it was an amazing performance. But it was kind of like lessened by the CGI.
Yeah, now that we're talking about it, I think my only other big flaw with the movie, I think is also intentional. And like you said, Swan, you're like, this movie is designed to make me uncomfortable. And I feel like I too was exhausted, but I was almost more exhausted by the way that every character in the movie just writes the main character off as crazy, which I'm like, okay, hi, yes, I too understand the point. It's like she's trying to say, hey, this thing is happening, and then no one believes her. But there were certain characters where I'm like, the boyfriend suck.
Totally
I'm like,
suck.
just believe your girlfriend for 5 fucking seconds, please.
You're supposed to believe that they love each other. They're going to be married. And
Right,
it
that they
seemed
live
like
in a
he was
house
just couldn't
together?
be bothered by her feelings.
Okay,
Yeah, I
yeah,
hate him.
until he realized that she killed his cat, and then he's like, goodbye. And I'm
well,
like, "Ah,
you
nice.
know, yeah.
You ain't going to kill my cat.
there
I'm
is
not
that.
doing
Okay,
that."
so for me, it's a wholeheartedly 2 claws way up and very much recommended. If you have the time or any interest to see Smile, you absolutely should.
I agree. I think we're joking and we're kind of picking at some of the stuff that we didn't think was the greatest. But overall, I think we all agree that this movie was fantastic. I really liked it. I thought it was scary. I definitely recommend watching it. 2 claws up.
I am just gonna come right out and agree. 2 claws up, and I will also say Kyle Gallner, who plays the slutty cop Joel. Girl, mama,
Drac was
diva,
going off the whole
mustache
time.
rides aplenty, honey. 2 claws up.
There were a lot of slutty guys in this movie.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
2
So
claws up.
anyways, we're going to take a break, and when we return, we'll be reaching into our bag of mail to answer some of our listener questions. We shall return.
Are you just dying to experience the terror of Dracula live on stage? Then get your tickets for the Boulet Brothers Dracula Titans Tour, coming to destroy a city near you. Available now at draculalive.com. Do it now or die. Welcome back, darlings. We are going to take some time to answer some of our listener mail. Ian, would you do the honors?
Ho, ho, ho. I've got my big sack of mail. Lila from Chicago writes, I am a huge fan of all things Boulet Brothers and De Vogler. Ooh! And I am also an avid consumer of music, and I was so excited to hear Drac reference Anna von Hauswolf on the season 2 finale. I was wondering if there are any other artists along that vein that you love and might refer one to.
No, that's the only one I know.
That's it. She's done, but
Sorry.
I'm not. I think it's kind of common knowledge because of some of the music we've chosen on Dragula. We're big fans of Astra, and I would also recommend Ayana Lee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she has a side project. I don't know if I'm going to massacre this name, but it's the same artist, but she teams up with another kind of like a digital artist when she does things under the name of Am I Who I Am? Mm-hmm. And it's spelled just like that. Really interesting, kind of like haunting, very cool stuff. And if you want to go retro, the Cocteau Twins is something I'm kind of like rediscovering, and I love it.
Jessica from Pittsburgh writes, would you all ever consider making a fan theme for your world tour stops? Episode 5 got me thinking any of the themes would be a blast to dress up as this time.
Okay, this is what we'll do. If one of the nights sells out, then we're going to assign a fan theme to it.
Ooh, it's so fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
But not until, because I don't want to dissuade people from buying tickets. Because, people think sometimes they're like, I have to dress up. Mm-hmm. That used to happen to us with parties week, though. People are like, it's a themed party. Oh, I can't go to that. I'm like, you don't have to wear the costume. So no costume required. Buy the ticket. When it sells out, I'll tell you that there is a costume required.
And I think if you just want to show up in drag, in costume, do it. It's like a freaky bacchanalia of weirdos.
Go off, sweetie.
I do have a unfortunate story of the time where I dressed up very recently. So, we live in LA. It's a bubble. People dress up all the time. And I'm also, I live in Boulet world. So, hi, dressing up for an event? Absolutely. So I went and saw My Chemical Romance in Texas. And I was like, oh, well, this is my childhood favorite band. And they're very, spooky and vampires and this. So I got all dolled up. I had like blood all over my face. I had white contacts and nails. I had the whole thing. And mama, I was the only person in any level of costuming above a fucking t-shirt. It's like 20,000 people in Texas. And I was like, oh. So I'm walking through the venue and I hear this guy go, oh my God, he did. That is scary as hell. And I was like, okay, mission accomplished, but also, damn, diva.
I love the one day out of each year when Ian remembers he's not 45 and tries to do something youth-oriented. It's so cute.
Back to my child coffin.
Oh, back in the cabinet from which you came from. How dare you attack me?
Scott from SF asks, Drac, Swan, and Ian, I am loving Titans. I'm obsessed with the cast and floor show so far, and I cannot wait for more. But I'm wondering why y'all don't start each episode with a skit or scene like the regular season of Dragula. I really miss them. Hail Satan.
Well, you'll be happy to know that in future iterations of the Boulet Brothers Dragula on a regular season, the skits will be back, the exterminations will be back, and all that. This is a spinoff, so we did not want it to be the same as a regular season of the show. So this is its own thing. That's why it's listed in its own category away from the Boulet Brothers Dragula on all streaming platforms. But yeah, it's just a spinoff. So that's why there's a trapdoor. That's why there is fright feats and no exterminations. It's just a little different format because I feel like we like to keep things exciting. So everyone at home, I'm reading this next question because for some reason, Ian
can't get
cannot
through it.
read it without laughing. So I'm going to step in. Michael writes, I have never worn contact lenses, and when I try to wear colored contacts, it hurts so much. As someone with sensitive eyes, what is your best advice for wearing colored contacts? I'm going to say you just have to deal with the pain because they're probably illegal or something, and you're not supposed to be putting them in your eyes. And if you continue to wear them like we do, you may go blind one day. So I don't advise it.
Yeah, there's no workaround here. It's like suck it up.
And
It's
you know
really
what?
the only option.
At this point, we get custom-made contacts from optometrists, and they still hurt. I don't know why.
They always hurt. I mean, okay, little workarounds potentially. Clean them. Clean them each time you wear them. Store them in the right kind of solution. Bring eye drops with you to alleviate some of the scratchiness. But truth be told, when you see us on the show or in live appearances or anything, Drac and I are probably wearing them upwards of like 10 hours in a row sometimes. And you just have to deal with it. There is kind of a threshold and then you get over it and you sort of forget about it. So good luck until you get there.
I would say if it's not essential to your branding, don't start wearing them.
Also, I just want to say, Michael, I wasn't laughing at your suffering. I just want to say, I think that there are certain types of like discomfort that people aren't used to. Like I've been wearing contact lenses since I was in the 3rd grade. So get into it. Embrace the suck, diva.
But you know what? You have worn color contacts too, but you wear them over your regular contacts, right?
Yes.
So I think it gives you a protective barrier.
Which I will say, because I've worn prescription colored contacts and those, they hurt like hell. Like colored contacts, they just suck. They're just not meant to be worn like that.
Yeah.
But if you can get a hold of prescription contact lenses that are for like, extended wear, I have to double stack mine, which is not good because it's not good for your eyes. But if you double stack a colored lens over the prescription lens, it's like Drac said, a protective barrier and keeps you feeling fresh.
Yeah. Double stack your eyes, double stack your wigs.
Double stack your nails. Double stack this look.
Juan Miguel Gonzalez from Virginia writes, Dear Boulets and Ian, will there be a soundtrack released for the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans?
Well, you probably know already that there will be a soundtrack release for the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans, and it already came out. It came out on December 20th, so hopefully you already know that, and you are streaming it until your ears bleed.
Along with our new single, Ascension, which of course was featured in the finale and is all over. We really love the track, so we hope the fans
I
do too.
love this track.
I do
think
too.
this is my favorite track that we've made.
It
She
is
good,
so
she
good.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening to the newest episode of Creatures of the Night. We've talked about the coming year, Smile, and a slew of other topics from the worlds of horror and drag, and we want to know what you think about it all. So tweet us using the hashtag COTNPod with your feelings and feedback, and keep the conversation going. Also, remember to send your listener questions to creatures@BouletBrothersDragula.com, and remember to subscribe, rate, and review. Until next time, uglies. The Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is hosted by the Boulet Brothers with their co-host and producer, Ian DeVogler. Engineered and mixed by Carlos Bueno, with music by Neuron Spector.